Hey everyone, welcome to part 8 in the Basic Training Booster Pass edition, where today we're going to cover everything you need to know to play Ninja Hideaway on 150cc. We're going to cover the strategies that I use in my current personal best, along with some alternative strategies that you can use if, for example, you're running the course without mushrooms. I mentioned that Sky Garden was one of the more frustrating courses to learn in Wave 1 of the DLC, but that was before I started working on learning the strats for this track, and oh boy do I have a treat for you all today, so without further ado, let's dive right on in. For Ninja Hideaway, we are once again going with our tried and true try-hard build. Hold down the item button before the run starts so that you can use a mushroom straight away and trick off the edge of the roof. Wait until you're about halfway over the bridge and then start a right drift. You want to start it a little bit tight but then quickly widen it. When you get to the little dirt square surrounding the pond, tighten up your drift angle again and then grab coins 1 and 2. These 2 coins can actually be really annoying to get, and on most of my runs I only end up grabbing 1 of them. To deal with that, you can take the turn a little bit wider like you can see me do here, because it will help you grab the coins, but it'll also cost you a little bit of time. After that, start a left drift, go up the stairs, and build up an Ultra Mini Turbo. Trick off the little ramp that divides the 2 sections of the big dojo and drive just to the right of the coin at the end of this path. Do a left hop into a right trick, and then land in a left soft drift to build up a Mini Turbo so that you can do a Mini Turbo trick off the ramp. Finally, do not land in a left drift here. Instead, wait until after landing and then start your left drift. Grab coins 4 through 7 and then do some glider vectoring to move on to the next section of the track. With the glider vectoring, you want to be holding kind of an up and right angle on the joystick. This will allow you to get through the trickable air vents while also helping you avoid the shy guys and preventing you from getting too high up, because what you want to do is take the lower path at the end of the glider section. And that's pretty much it for the first half of the track. Now, all of this is obviously going to be a lot easier said than done, right? So let's break things down a bit. The whole reason for this complicated series of inputs is so that we can take a tight line around the turn before the glider ramp while also maintaining our speed. The left hop before the first ramp starts getting us better alignment and also allows us to land on the next platform more quickly. Speaking of this platform, it moves up and down. Take note of this because we're going to mention it a little bit later on. Now, we did a left hop before the trick, and the right trick actually straightens us out a little bit on that moving platform before the white ramp. We need to do this because it forces us to take a slightly wider line, which might sound a bit counterproductive because I just said that we want to take tight lines around this turn, but you need to realize that this wider line is what allows us to build up the Mini Turbo in the first place. And that Mini Turbo is important because releasing the Mini Turbo at the same time as the trick allows you to get a more powerful trick boost. Finally, after that white ramp, delaying the drift allows us to get all 4 coins from one of these lines, because if you land in the left drift, your alignment's going to be all screwed up. Now, I realize that a lot of this stuff is pretty complicated, and while that left hop trick stuff is pretty important for taking good lines, the Mini Turbo trick into delayed drift isn't absolutely necessary here. To make things a bit easier on yourself, you can just start a left drift and trick off the ramp without building up a Mini Turbo, and then drive straight up to the ramp and trick off of it. Fortunately, we're mostly out of the woods as far as complicated strats go. When we land from the glider, we want to trick off the ramp here. It can be somewhat finicky, so I suggest shaking the controller to do the trick. Now do a left Mini Turboless drift, also sometimes known as a slide, to get good alignment around the next turn while grabbing coins 8 through 10, and then trick off the platform at the end. That left slide isn't absolutely necessary, but if you don't do it, you're more likely to run into the pole after landing from the trick. Now when you do land, make sure that you land in a left drift so that you can build up a Mini Turbo. You're going to be facing a little bit too far to the left once you get it, so do 2 right hops to compensate, and then do a left drift and trick off the ramp. The goal is to build up a Mini Turbo when you do that trick, but the timing can be really tight, so if you don't, it's not really the end of the world here. Feel free to ignore that first Mini Turbo and all the extra hops, by the way, since the time save is pretty minimal. You can just trick off that first ramp and then drive straight all the way until you get to that first bump on the rooftop and then trick off of it like normal. After that, land in a left drift and build up a Super Mini Turbo around this turn. When you release it, wait until you're in midair and then hold down the drift button and right on the joystick so that you can build up a Mini Turbo before the first bump on this final turn. Then, put your joystick in neutral and trick off the first 2 bumps, which should carry you over the 3rd bump. Finally, trick off the last bump to finish the lap. This strategy was really annoying to figure out, so let's break it down while throwing an input display on the screen here. The first thing to point out is the Super Mini Turbo that we built up on the previous turn. You'll notice that I actually hold the left drift for just a little bit after building up the Super Mini Turbo. This is because it allows you to take that right turn from kind of a wide angle so that when you get to the first bump, the neutral trick will launch you straight up the track like you can see here. And the neutral part of that neutral trick is kind of important because, at least in my experience, I found that if you're doing a direction on the joystick when you do the trick, it can cause you to get a lot of airtime. This is also why we wanted to approach the turn kind of wide, because if you come at it at a bad angle, you'll also get a ton of airtime. Alright, we can finally move on to lap 2. There's really only two differences between lap 1 and laps 2 and 3. The first is that we're going to do a mini turbo trick off the pond here. And the second is that we're actually going to take the mushroom cut now. The setup isn't super complicated. First of all, we're just going to ultra mini turbo up the stairs like before. Then do a left hop before tricking off the divider and land in a left drift, and then drift all the way off the platform. You can pretty much hold a hard left all the way down to help you build up a super mini turbo, and then when you land, use your mushroom. Finally, just do some more glider vectoring to finish up this section of the track, and the rest of the track plays just like before. Now let's talk alternate strats. Most of these are going to pertain to the dojo section. For the mushroom cut, you can actually do it shroomless in a lot of different ways. I've got a whole video on that topic that I'll put at the top of this video and in the description if you're interested. I do actually really recommend watching that video and learning those strats because they're not super hard and they save a lot of time. That being said, if you aren't able to get the cut down consistently, then what I suggest is that you just take the lower path all the time, since taking the upper path, which is actually faster by the way, requires that the moving platform be in the up position, which is pretty much impossible to predict online. Finally, moving on to the world record strats, the current world record uses Baby Daisy in place of Waluigi for the increase in mini turbo, but as you might imagine if you've watched the other videos on this channel, the strats are much harder. Plus, it's only faster than the previous Roy world record by only a couple tenths of a second, so that's the record we're going to talk about here. There's three main differences between that world record and my run. First is that they build up a mini turbo and do some extra counter hop stuff at the top of the stairs in the dojo section. Honestly, the timing isn't really that tight, but for some reason, literally every time I've tried to replicate this strat, I don't actually start the drift and instead just kind of bounce off the top of the stairs, which makes it impossible to actually build up the mini turbo in time. Next, the previous Roy world record goes a little bit tighter around the turn before the glider ramp, and then they do motion glider strats instead of normal glider vectoring like I do. The third difference is that they build up an extra mini turbo on the outdoor roof section. Like I mentioned before, the timing on that mini turbo is really tight, and if you do it wrong, it messes with the setup for the last straightaway. And since most of your time save is going to come from executing that last straightaway properly anyways, that's what I would recommend optimizing first. There's a lot of other little minor optimizations that they do, but if you're interested in checking that record out, I've got a link to it in the description below. Now those are all the strats, let's talk a little bit more about the track while checking out my current personal best. And by the way, if you haven't already done so, please don't forget to click the like button down below since it really does help the video get spread to other people looking to improve at the game. Now, Ninja Hideaway. It was a real roller coaster of emotions putting this video together, let me tell you. If you've watched my track ranking video, you'll know that I rated this as my third favorite track in the entire game, and easily my favorite track in the DLC. Then, I started trying to learn the strats on 150cc and I was like, oh man, looks like this course sucks after all. It's weird because it's not a super technical course by any means in the way that something like Cheeseland is, but there's a lot of precise setups that you need to learn to play the track effectively. Honestly, it kind of reminds me of Royal Raceway in that respect, where on 150cc the entire first half of the track is basically a long sequence of inputs that acts as a setup for the Shroomless shortcut. With Ninja Hideaway, it's kind of the same thing, where the first half sets you up for the glider vectoring, but the difference is that the back half of the course behaves like its own ridiculously long setup for the ramp tricks in the final straightaway. And the thing is, if you mess up these strats, it's not like minor time losses. Most of the time, if you mess something up in this track, you're either losing half a second or more easily, or just falling off the track entirely. And this goes doubly so for the ramp tricks at the end of the lap like I mentioned before. I managed to get a sub 2 minute time within about an hour of grinding, and then I thought to myself, alright, I'm done with this track for now because I can't see myself doing a whole lot better than this without really destroying my hands. Then in the course of trying to learn a setup for the lap 1 glider section, I actually ended up inadvertently figuring out a much faster way to do the last straightaway with all the ramp tricks, and ended up saving more than a second over my previous PB. Then I figured out a faster way to do that glider section and the mushroom cut and saved an additional second and a half, bringing me down to a low 157, which is the run that you're watching right now. Truth be told, Ninja Hideaway really is a pretty frustrating course to learn, but once you do learn it, it's really consistent, which is more than I can say for courses like Coconut Mall anyways. Not only that, but learning the strats makes the course a ton of fun to play, both in time trials and online, so at the end of the day, I think I can definitely stand by my ranking of this course as one of the best ones in the DLC, and definitely one of the best courses in the whole game. And that's everything you need to know to play Ninja Hideaway on 150cc. If this video helped you out, then you can help me out by clicking on the like button down below. And also, let me know what your thoughts are on this course. Do you enjoy it as well? Do you find it more frustrating? And also, what's your current personal best? Are you still struggling to figure out any of the strats? Let me know down in the comment section below because I'd love to hear from you and I tend to be pretty responsive, so if you need additional help, I'm more than willing to help out in the comments. Plus, liking and commenting again is the best way to help out the channel. Speaking of helping out, just want to give a shout out to the people who've become members of the YouTube channel. Click on the join button down below if you want to get early access to all my videos and to have your username featured in the end credits. Thank you all very much for taking the time out of your day to do some basic training, and as always, I will see you in the next one.